Having a loved one with dementia is a little bit like having your current reality crash. Their behavior starts to change radically. They may do crazy things. They might even not recognize you anymore. In this video, I'm going to show you why it is so difficult to have a loved one with dementia, but I'm also going to give you 4 steps that you can follow to mitigate the stress. Hi, if you don't know me, I'm Sonia Weyers. I'm a certified Gestalt-therapist, and in 2018 and 2019, I cared for my own 2 parents at the end of their lives, and now I want to support you, who's doing the most important job of caring for a loved one who's losing autonomy, and even with dementia sometimes. The cognitive decline and the behavioral changes of your loved one modify the relationship, and they really rob you of the world as you knew it with your loved one, and that can be deeply disturbing. So step 1 is to take the time to grieve this. When my mom had already declined quite a bit, my parents came to my house for Christmas. It was actually the last time that they came. And my dad had to do all the packing because my mom, who used to do that, didn't do it anymore. And so he was telling me how he asked her how many t-shirts she needed. He put them in the suitcase, and then she came along and took them out and put them back in the closet, and that everything was like that, he said. And he got there so discouraged, so exhausted. Now, of course, we were there. I was there with a couple of kids of mine, and we supported as well as we could. And he felt much better after a few days. But for him, who was caring for my mom, it was really a tough job. But he had to grieve the fact that she was no longer the way she used to be. So hit the like button if this is hitting home for you, so I know that I'm connecting with you. The second difficulty is that a loved one with dementia or another form of cognitive decline will also lead to more safety concerns and also to more physical demands. And so the second step is to educate yourself on dementia. For example, you could do a search on your favorite search engine on dementia education or dementia facts or things to know about a loved one with dementia. And maybe you can devote 4 times 15 minutes. I know you're busy, but it's important that you get some information because their behavior changes are not your fault. And I know sometimes they might accuse you of it. But it's really important that you understand a bit more how it works to protect yourself. When my dad had his first surgery under general anesthesia, my mom had already declined quite a bit and she could no longer stay alone. I was their only child, so I went to be with my mom, And so he had shown me how to put her to bed, help her brush her teeth and all the things. And so she was in bed, and a little bit later she screeched, like a really sharp screech. I thought maybe she had a nightmare. And the second time it happened, well, I went to see her, right? I thought maybe something's wrong. And I helped her get back in bed, and things seemed to be okay. And we did that 3 or 4 times. And at the 4th or 5th time I went, she looked me in the eye and she said, "You can go back to France." My parents lived in Belgium and I lived in France. And so in that moment, it was very fortunate that I was able to understand that, well, first of all, she knew who I was. She knew where I lived, so there was no ambiguity. But I somehow got that she thought that it was the fact that I came that made my dad go away, which of course I knew wasn't the case. But that was only the beginning of our problems. So if you find some good resources about dementia, please share them in the comments so that other people can benefit also. So the third difficulty is that seeing a loved one decline cognitively can have some deeply disturbing emotional impacts. So I remember I was 20 or 21 and my grandmother had pretty advanced cognitive decline. And she greeted me one day and thought I was my cousin's girlfriend. Now, for the 20-year-old I was, that was a pretty chilling moment. I remember that vividly. And it can also be really heartbreaking. Closer to home, like my dad, watching my mom decline like that, his heart cracked and bled, seeing the love of his life lose her connection with the world progressively. It was pretty poignant to watch that. And it can also lead to social isolation just through the sheer demands of time and energy. So the third step for you is to make sure that you have enough support. So maybe you get that already from friends or family. Maybe you already have a therapist. But if you would like support in a community of peers who really get what you're going through, those kind of emotional impacts are really at the heart of the expertise I provide in the community I manage, your support within your reach. If you're interested in that, you'll find the link around this video. The fourth difficulty is that with the progression of dementia, communication issues can occur that seem completely crazy to the rational mind. So I remember my grandmother, she was 91 years old, and she started accusing her longtime cleaning lady of stealing shoes. But these shoes, my mom, who was my grandmother's daughter, right, hadn't seen her own mom with these shoes for decades. And so my grandmother fired this cleaning lady, and she fired a couple more. So several people lost their jobs on the grounds of accusations that to the rest of us seem completely crazy. So the fourth step for you is that you really cannot expect the same level of rationality from your loved one with dementia. And so you've got to adjust your communication. And I'm going to give you a few things to focus on. So you may need to learn to be more patient, because getting annoyed is not going to help anything. And so if you can be more patient, it's going to be easier for you, and it's also going to be more productive. The other thing you can focus on is maintaining contact in a way that's nonverbal. If it's difficult to, if the verbal exchange is difficult, you can maintain eye contact. You can also maintain some physical touch, and that might be helpful and may be appeasing for both of you. You can also try using simpler language, so shorter sentences and fewer complicated words. Your loved one just isn't going to be able to understand the way you used to speak sometimes. And also sometimes it can be helpful to distract your loved one rather than contradict them, right? So my grandmother, sometimes when she accused the person of stealing her shoes, we might usher her to the kitchen and talk about what we were going to have for lunch or something like that. And that just kind of breaks the tension of the moment. So my mom, when her dementia was pretty advanced, she was stitching her stockings. That was something she did. And she would stitch and sew and stitch and a bit frantically. And my dad was annoyed by this. And so Easter weekend, my dad was in the hospital with his 5th general anesthesia, I think. And so I was alone with my mom, and we went on some errands, and we walked into a shop that had different sewing and knitting things. And my mom was able to pick a cross-stitch pattern. And so I'll show it to you. So it was an Easter chicken. So there it is. I did the lines and she did the turns. And the next day when we showed it to my dad, he had tears in his eyes. He was so moved. And I really keep this as a wonderful memory. So I actually want to go much deeper than these 4 steps in the experience of the dementia caregiver so that you can handle this new reality in your life in a much more empowered way and with more peace in your heart. And that's exactly what I'm sharing in the new series that I have here on YouTube that appears on your screen right now. So I'll see you on the other side.